see right now, and other people will start logging in as well. And so I'm going to put my glasses on and I'm going to say good evening to everybody and welcome to Punch Kick Choke Chat. I'm one of the hosts. My name is Randy Dauphin, as you know, if you've watched before. And we're missing somebody who is Sean Benson, who normally is the main host, but he's doing that thing that we always cut him slack for. We don't cut him slack for much, but we cut him slack when he's off being an actor because that's his main gig, and we're really happy for him. So he's out there. What is the show? Such like it's Billy the Kid, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's called. So he's
Yes.
out there doing Billy the Kid. And so if you've joined us tonight, we're here with Sensei Terry Yanke, who's a good friend of ours, and we're going to jump in as we always do with a question. And I do think we'll go around the horn on this, but we're going to go to you first, Sensei Yanke. And the question is, it's very straightforward. What inspired you to become a martial artist? What is the thing that inspired you to be a martial artist?
Mhm. Well, my sister happened to be the secretary for the chief of police in Waterloo. And I don't know how to word this. On one of my visits to the police station, when I turned 16, she suggested that I meet someone who's teaching judo. His name was he was a Sergeant Joe Letterman. And so she said, I kind of agreed. And I said, all right, we'll give it a try. So she said, all right, I want you to be at this school because he taught out of a school this time. I said, well, okay. So when I got to the school, there were a couple people there. And I'm standing on the mat there. Joe Letterman came out of the dressing room and came onto the mats. Excuse me. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die. Joe was about 6'2", about 280 pounds, bald with a mustache and a big scar under his chin. And he had a really, really deep voice. And he welcomed me. And I thought, he's going to kill me. He knows stuff about me. My sister has told him stuff about me, and just to punish me. Anyway, I started a class that night, and I never looked back. It was a rough while. I was a 16-year-old, had a bit of a chip on my shoulder, a bit of a temper. And he definitely helped me get over that. And yeah, I owe him a lot. So it was just, and I continued, I wanted to learn more and more and more. It's like I was never satisfied with what I learned. So I just continued.
So you weren't actually inspired. You were told
Yes,
to
I
do it
was.
by your older sister.
It was recommended by my older sister and my parents. They thought it would be good for me, and they were right.
They were right. I wonder if Joe Letterman is any relation to David Letterman.
Yes, that's a son. If he has a son, David.
I mean, David Letterman, the talk show host. So it's probably,
Oh, no, not
probably not.
that. No, that
Okay.
His son, David Letterman, is a police officer in Waterloo.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask Sensei Suino the same question that I asked you, Sensei Yanke, and I think we might get a similar answer. But Sensei, as a youth, what inspired you, Sensei Suino, to become a martial artist?
It's alarmingly similar story. I was 8 years old, lived in a really challenged neighborhood. I was a little kid with a big mouth. And my parents said, we better do something about this, or this kid's not going to make it to his teenage years. So they took me to the local YMCA, down the basement to the dojo there, and went to an introductory class where we watched for a while, and then they showed us a few judo moves. I was hooked the first second I saw it. I remember that to this day. So that was 1968. I can remember that demo and some of the throws that they demonstrated and how it felt and how it smelled. And yeah, it was just one of those crazy things. Like it was fate. I fell in love with it and never looked back.
It's
You
funny,
said
in 1968 is when I started as well.
Ha! You're a good man, I can tell.
Just-
and you were 8, right? Is that what you said? You were 8 years old?
Yep.
Okay. So then everybody can do the math because Sensei Yanke was 16 and you were 8. So everybody can do the math on where we are with that.
Mhm.
Sensei Legacy, were you 8 years old when you joined karate and did your parents bring you there? What inspired you, Sensei Legacy, to become a martial artist?
Well, when I was a kid, I used to get comic books and stuff like that. And every once in a while, I'd see ads for karate and everything. So I always wanted to learn how to fight. And it was mysterious to us at that time because it was like an Oriental martial art. And I didn't know that much about the Orient. And then one day, when I was to a friend's house, and he goes, "Hey, there's a karate club that started down the street. You should go try that." And, yeah, I think you'd be good at it. So I went out and I ended up trying it. And like Sensei Spino said, it was the smell and the feeling. I hate to say that, but it smells, that dojo smell, and then the feeling of excitement that I felt. I felt like comfortable. So that was basically how I got started.
I just felt really sore.
That's what happens when a 6'2", 240-pound judo black belt who's a police officer gives you your first lesson, I think.
Well, he taught judo in the army, and he was just really, really tough, very strong, and he would throw me down, and I would no sooner be on the mat, and I'd be back up again, and he wore me down to the point where my my physical being just wasn't doing any good. And I think this was something that he was trying to get through to me as well. It's like, it doesn't matter how strong you are, if you don't have the technique, you're going to be lost. And so be it.
Nobody disagrees with that. We all understand that. We've all felt the technique. I myself was inspired to be a martial artist. I think mostly because in my family, unlike you, Sensei Yanke, I had a lot of motorcycle people around me as a youth. And to be honest with you, they were all rough, tough guys. My mom's brothers were all rough, tough guys. And I had this combination of being afraid of them and also wanting to be tough like them. And so I wanted to join martial arts, but also similar to Suino Sensei, I had a big mouth, and I got in a lot of fights when I was younger. And my mom and dad didn't want me to join martial arts because they just thought it was going to make me a more effective bully. And it was actually my grandmother. So I started training with Sensei Legacy when I was 18. And I thought I was really tough until I walked in there. And then I realized after about 10 seconds that I wasn't tough at all. And also, like everybody else, I realized that I had found a place that I was going to stay forever and I was going to continue to do martial arts. But I want to give some props to my grandma because after I'd been training with Sensei for 4 months, he didn't ask me to pay, but I knew I had to pay and I had to come up with $100 and I didn't have $100. And I went to my mom and she said, "I told you already, you're going to university because you're going there for school. I don't want you doing karate." And my grandmother heard all this. And the day before I left, she came up out of the basement and handed me five $20 bills and said, "You go do that karate thing that you want to do." So props to my
Very
grandma.
good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And so what I want to say to everybody is thanks for joining the show live tonight. If you're on Zoom or on YouTube, if you want to help us out on Punch Kick Choke Chat by giving us a listen, putting some comments in there, giving a thumbs up, sharing some things out. If you stumble across something that you like, or if you're watching this tonight for the first time, all of our previous episodes are out there and you can go back and look at any of those at any time. as I said, Sean's not here, but I'm joined tonight by my two instructors, Sensei Nicholas Swino and Hanshi Gary Legacy, who I just always call Sensei. And we're here together for almost the 200th time. And we're here together, the three of us, for over 36 years now. We've all been training and doing stuff together for 36 years. And if I had a short list of, 5 people that I was going to spend the rest of my life with, these two people would be on that short list of people. And as I said, we're here tonight with Sensei Terry Yanke, and I'm going to give him his introduction right now. As we already learned, he began training in 1968, and he was 16 years old. And it was right here. He's in my community, if you don't know. Sensei Yanke and I are probably like a short 17 or 18-minute drive from each other, where he is and where I am. He was 16, and he was awarded his first degree black belt in 1972. And not to make anybody feel anyway, but that was when I was 1 year old, and that's when my wife was born in 1972. When his judo instructor retired, that's when he began doing jiu-jitsu. Oddly enough, he began doing jiu-jitsu at the Kitchener YMCA, this little known place where most great martial artists start, in the YMCA. His instructor there was Al McLean Sensei, and he had a few other instructors along the way. He received his first degree black belt in jiu-jitsu in 1981 with the Canadian Jiu-Jitsu Association, the CJA. Shortly after receiving his black belt, he started his own club in this community in Waterloo. I'm in Kitchener, he's in Waterloo, but you can drive from one city to the other and not know that you've actually gone to a different city. When Sensei received his fourth dan, Ron Forrester Sensei, who was the president of the CGA at the time, he requested that Sensei Yanke join the CGA grading board. And a few years later, he was asked to join that board of directors, and eventually he became the president, and that was in 1998. He became the president of the CGA. The CGA was a member of the World Council for Jiu-Jitsu Organization, the WCJJO, and Sensei Yanke was the director for Canada for a number of years in that one, and he eventually became the president of that association as well. Today, Sensei holds the rank of 9th degree black belt in Jiu-Jitsu with the Ontario Jiu-Jitsu Association, the OJA, which we have that current president on the call right now paying attention to this, which is Sensei Doug Knispel. In 2016, he turned the KW Jiu-Jitsu Club over to his son, Michael, but he remained the chief instructor and was teaching weekly classes to youths, adults, and monthly classes to black belts. 6 degrees of separation, or 1 in this case. That club is now run by Sensei Mark Carbage. He's one of his black belts. He also works with me at the University of Waterloo and is a good friend of mine and is a great martial artist. Really enjoy when I interact with him. So some of the achievements that Sensei Yanke has achieved, as we said, president of the Ontario Jiu-Jitsu Association, the Canadian Jiu-Jitsu Association, president of the World Council of Jiu-Jitsu Organizations, chairman of the Black Belt Grading Board, and he's still part of that. 4-time World Championship competitor in Australia, Argentina, USA, and New Zealand. He's been a coach and a trainer for Canadian fighters. He's been an international referee at 6 World Championships. He was the CGA Coach of the Year in 2001, inducted into the CGA Black Belt Hall of Fame in 1994, CGA Competitor of the Year in 1993, Certificate of Recognition for Amateur Sports Achievement presented by Premier Bob Ray in 1991, the CGA Black Belt of the Year in 1990, former owner and current chief instructor at KW Jiu-Jitsu Club, more than 30 students to black belt, including some up to 6th degree black belt, trainer for tactical officers and defense techniques, weapons defense, instructor at the World Kabuto Federation at Capital Conquest. And listen, when we asked him to be on, I just said all that stuff to you. He said, Randy, I shouldn't come on your show because I haven't really done anything. That's why he didn't want to come on the show, because he said he hasn't done as much as other people. But I think we've dispelled that that myth. Uh, as I said, I work with one of his students, and the lessons that you've put into him are great because he's a great man. He's been to Kitchener. He's been in this dojo that I'm in right now. The first time I ever actually met him was in this dojo when we did our May camp. I remember going out to your truck with you and just imploring you to always come
Oh,
back.
great. Yes.
Yeah, we've had meals together at Honchitarian's house. We've shared the floor. All of us have been instructors at Capital Conquest. He is a great martial artist. Sensei Yanke is a great person, and we're super proud to have you on here, Sensei. Thank you for
Thank you very much.
coming on this show with us tonight. So we kind of talked about what got you into your first dojo and who was there. But one thing I've been thinking about is we often don't crack that open as much. So we know that Joe Letterman was there and he was instructing you, but could you maybe just describe for us what was the actual dojo like? Was there any notable other people that were in the dojo? Like just maybe for the viewers, explain that experience for them as a 16-year-old coming into a dojo. Who was there? Who did you train with outside of your instructor? Like, just fill in a little details for us.
Okay. Joe Letterman was a very extraordinary guy. He and his wife took in kids that needed help, foster kids. And he ended up taking in 17 at one time. And so a lot of these kids, they had some issues, they had some troubles. And in order to provide an out for them, an escape, give them something to do, he started teaching judo, but not to them, to neighborhood kids as well. So when I started taking judo, there was maybe 10 kids there, including myself, who at the school, we would set up all the mats and we would train for a couple hours and then have to put all the mats away. And that's the way it was for quite a long time. And we had to move to a couple different schools because well, actually, I don't know why, but we had to. So my experience, Joe was the technician, and he really emphasized patience, and respect and dedication, being humble, being honest. I mean, all these things that he was teaching to everybody. And excuse me, those were my classes. They I'm sure very similar to what a lot of other people, how they learned, how they were taught. And it got to the point where I started to help him teach. Now, he had some foster children who spent a lot of time with him, but a lot of times they were coming and going. And so when I started to help him instruct, getting warmed up and helping some of the ones who are having a hard time, a lot of them were having quite a bit of trouble because they hadn't been there that long, and there was quite a turnover. It wasn't a typical dojo, but we made it one.
Amazing.
Yeah, he was a great guy.
Sounds like you have a lot of respect from. Also, we didn't mention that you are a retired police officer in this community as well. So he must have inspired you in other ways also.
He did. And actually he helped me get on the police force. He suggested that I apply, and I didn't. Obviously I got on, and yeah, I owe him a lot. He was almost like a second father to me. Like I said, he's probably one of the most honest dedicated, respectful individuals I know.
Okay, so this is your judo instructor, and
Yes.
then he retires. And take us through how you got yourself to the YMCA and your jujitsu instructor there, and you
Okay.
know why you stuck with that. Why didn't you go back to judo? Why didn't you go find Sensei Hadashida and train with him in judo? What was it about jujitsu?
It's a good question. When I was taking judo, when I started, one of the, you want to call it one of the perks is Joe Letterman didn't charge me anything.
That's a perk.
I didn't have any money, and I couldn't afford to go to Hatashta, which was at Waterloo Square at that time. So it was quite convenient for my pocketbook as well. But when Joe retired from teaching judo and I got on the police force, I was asking I got to know some of the tactical officers, and I ended up getting on the team. But I was discussing martial arts with one of them, and he said, you should try jujitsu. He said, it's being taught in the Y, and it was just down the street. I said, I knew nothing about jujitsu. I liked how it sounded, but I knew nothing about it. And so I went to the YMCA and met Sensei Al McLean, and I was more hooked. I mean, it's what I enjoyed, the throwing, the grappling, the takedowns, the hold downs, all that. But now in jiu-jitsu, he incorporated kicks, punches, stand-up fighting. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. And yeah, I was hooked when I started judo, but I was even more hooked when I started jiu-jitsu. Now, Al had a background. He had a 4th-degree black belt in karate. And he was a kinesiology student at the University of Waterloo. And he met another kinesiology student who was teaching Hapkido, a guy by the name of Rand Stevenson. And excuse me, the two of them worked at the club for a little bit, and when I got there, Rand wasn't there. And around that time, Ron Forrester was the president of the CGA, and he and I don't know the connection, but he asked Sensei Al McLean and Rand to go down to meet a bunch of instructors from the CGA. He said, because they don't do a lot of kicking, they do a lot of punching, and he wanted Al to go over some kicking techniques and that sort of thing. And shortly after that, Al's club became part of the CGA. And shortly after that, that's when I became involved. That's the best of my knowledge.
Well, that is a good linear description. I have another question so we've had a lot of jiu-jitsu people on here, also Doug Knispel, Rego Sensei. The one thing that I find with the jiu-jitsu crowd is there's always some link to law enforcement and use of force training and all this kind of stuff. I'd love to hear, Sensei Yanke, why you think jiu-jitsu is so applicable to law enforcement, because you'll have a unique perspective because you're actually a retired law enforcement officer as well. So what is it about that style that lends itself so well to law enforcement?
I would have to say that probably 95% of the time that you're dealing with somebody physically, as a police officer, maybe making arrests, the people aren't really, they're not fighting you. They just don't want to go with you. They don't want to be arrested. And so they're not necessarily punching and kicking. And not that that hasn't happened, because obviously it has. But to be able to control somebody with, and I used a number of techniques, whether it's an arm bar or with a shoulder lock, I always use strangulation technique. So there's not the damage or the injury being caused from being punched or from kicking somebody. And it just, because ideally you're going to be putting handcuffs on somebody. And you really don't want to hurt somebody. I mean, if you're arresting somebody for a domestic or whatever, it doesn't really matter. You don't want to hurt them. You've got a job to do. You've got to enforce the law. But at the same time, if you hurt somebody, you're going to be held accountable. And so for me, a lot of the things that you learn, not just in jiu-jitsu, but as a martial artist, you learn a proper stance. You learn how to protect yourself. But in jiu-jitsu, when dealing with in the law enforcement aspect of it, even those things come in handy. You have to be able to know what to do once you have a hold of somebody. And like I said, I didn't want to punch anybody. I mean, I can't say it didn't happen. It may have happened once. But yeah, for me, jiu-jitsu was just ideal. It was perfect.
Yeah, you can't strangle people anymore either, Sensei. They don't strangle them anymore either.
Well, this might, I don't know if I'd love to hear your thoughts, Sensei, on this, right? There's been a fair amount of controversy in the last few years about the difference between a strangle and an airway choke, right? In law enforcement, there's been some very high profile cases. What's your perspective on all that?
Well, I can tell you, I was challenged in court one time because I wouldn't choke somebody. I'd always strangle them. I know the dangers of choking somebody, and so I always strangled them. And I was challenged in court one time by this defense attorney saying that I said, "You choked my client." I said, "Well, actually, no, I didn't. I strangled him." That didn't help a lot, but
sounds great.
He said, "So what's the difference? There's not a big." I said, "Well, actually, there is." So I explained in court the difference between applying pressure to somebody's airway, which can be a little dangerous, compared to the strangulation technique. And I didn't win the case, but I made the point. And and it was, I think, to your point, they don't allow it anymore. And I know guys on my shift, they would see me strangle somebody and within 10 seconds they're out. And I think a lot of officers saw me do that, and they maybe seen other people do that, and that we're gonna just make them do the chicken. For some reason, that's what we call them. And they would just wrap their arm around it and squeeze, not knowing exactly, what's happening. We happen to have, when I was taking jiu-jitsu, we happened to have a doctor who was taking the class as well. And we talked about strangulation techniques and chokes, and he said, before you apply this, like, he wasn't the instructor, but he said, before you apply this, he said, it's really important to know what's happening. So he explained pressure, obviously, on the carotid artery where the heart is beating, taking blood up to the brain, providing oxygen. But he said, you have to remember there's also a vagus nerve that goes right beside it. He said, the vagus nerve is sending messages to your heart beat. And once you put pressure on that message gets slowed down. And somebody who's in a confrontation, their heart wants to beat faster. There's anxiety there. So the pressure on the vagus nerve is slowing that message getting down to the heart. And basically, I mean, he explained a few more things about that. But the idea was if you choke somebody, they're going to be fighting. And if you apply too much pressure, there's a really good chance you're going to cause some damage to the windpipe. So I think there were a number of citizens who were getting hurt. And it was because the officers who were applying the technique, they weren't doing it carefully enough and properly. So this is really funny, but we were told, okay, no more chokes. And I thought, well, that's kind of my favorite move. Because I always find that when I was dealing with people, I wanted to get behind them. And once I got behind them, I kind of had them. So it would just be a matter of grabbing, pulling. And so I figured out there's got to be something else I can do. So I thought about it. I really didn't develop anything. It's just I did this technique where I would grab the chin and I would use my arm as a lever. And then I would take my thumb and I would drive it into the brachial plexus. Almost the same effect as a strangulation technique, with a difference. This technique was really, really painful. And people started messing their pants. And so I'm right behind them. And the first time this happened, I thought, what is going on here? So I got this guy down because I had fought with him quite a bit. And all of a sudden, you know what's happening. I thought, oh, geez. So I put, on with the handcuffs. I have to put him in my cruiser. So this happened a few more times. And I had to change a little bit just so they wouldn't poop themselves. It's funny because I told the guys on my ball team, I said, this is what's going on. I have to change a little bit because they're pooping themselves.
I bet they got a kick out of that.
Well, these idiots on the ball team, they would go to the umpire and say, look, don't call him out because he'll make you poop. It's like, oh, geez. Anyway, sorry, that's just a segue. Now, where was I?
Well, I have a question for you, Sensei Yanke, on that, because I have to admit, I'm not clear on this. Like when you say, I actually don't know the difference between a strangulation and a choke. In my mind,
Okay.
they're the same thing. Like I would have just thought it was the same thing. So maybe you can break that out for us a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe you can give us the shit on that.
Well, strangulation technique is you're applying pressure to the side, and you can feel your pulse. You're applying pressure to the carotid artery. The arteries are sending blood from the heart to your brain. People die for one reason: brain lacks oxygen. So by applying pressure, and I used to just use the naked strangle, or I would, if they had a coat on, it would make it easier as well. By applying pressure to the sides of the neck, the brain gets starved of oxygen. That can happen in about 5 seconds. When I teach self-defense, because I used to teach self-defense to ladies, and in a basic self-defense scenario, you don't need to be nice to somebody. And so by taking the bone in your forearm and putting it across the trachea and pulling in, what it does, it's almost the same thing in that you can't breathe. And if you can't breathe, you can't get oxygen into your lungs and so forth. But this really hurts. So the difference is that both of them are going to be successful in rendering someone unconscious, but the choke is going to really hurt. So in a self-defense situation, I tell my students, if you get a strangulation on somebody, that's fine, but choke them, because really what you want to do is you want to stop someone's desire to continue an attack. If you incorporate pain in whatever you're doing, they'll stop. Where if you put a strangulation technique on and it doesn't hurt, it's really uncomfortable, but it doesn't hurt, they're going to continue to fight. And the longer a fight goes on, the more chance of somebody getting hurt and people joining in. So
I'm just jotting a note. I jot these notes down, Sensei Yanke. So I like that. I forgot to do something. I've already messed it up. I forgot to tell all the people watching that if you have questions for Sensei Yanke, please put them in the chat. Okay. And yeah, Andre just lit that up. And we really do want them. We want you to send your questions in if you have a question for Sensei Yanke.
don't make them too hard.
Well, I guess we haven't done that yet. We haven't
Oh,
made
okay.
yeah. But I have a question that I think we could go around the horn on. It's actually something that we've never actually I don't think we've ever gone around the horn on a question like this. And we're going to start with you, Sensei Yanke, but I'm going to go around to everybody. I'm also confused about so I do karate, I do iaido. I've started doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which I know is different than jiu-jitsu. I don't understand what a jiu-jitsu class looks like as far as you bow in, you step on the mat, you bow in, and then what happens? Like what does a typical class look like? How long is it? What do you instruct? Are there various types of classes that you do in jiu-jitsu, or is it always the same type of a class? What is it like when you do a jiu-jitsu class?
Okay, and I can only speak for the club I go to and the way I ran it, and I'm confident that a lot of other clubs do the same thing. We break our curriculum down. So I teach Tuesday nights. They have a class Thursday nights and Saturdays. And depending on who's there, but the class gets mixed up from week to week. So Tuesday night, for instance, there may be striking, kicking and striking. On the Thursday night, there might be hand techniques where you're dealing with joint locks, fingers, elbows, shoulders, that sort of thing, and maybe takedowns. And on the Saturday class, it may be grappling. So you may cover all aspects of what traditional jiu-jitsu is throughout the week, but not all of it at one night.
And duration is hour and a half, 5
Hour and a half.
hours.
Yeah, 5 hours. That would no, it's an hour, about an hour and a half.
And I'm assuming some of these techniques are really painful.
They can be. I mean, it's you think of traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu, it's a lot of it is pain compliance. You're going to comply with what I want you to do because you're in pain, and I'm inflicting that pain. So yeah. I mean, once you get, green, blue, brown belt, obviously black belt, you can apply a technique, and it's going to work. You don't have to make somebody tap to the floor and back up again. Yeah, you just know it's working for you when you've done it, as many times as we have. And so yeah, it's back to your original question. There's warm-ups, and the warm-ups are gauged sort of towards the class that's going to be taught that day.
So what would a warm-up be like? Explain that.
Well, it would be like jogging around the dojo, and then changing the jog to maybe sidestepping. Because you usually start with a bit of a warm-up first, and then stretching, and then just a little bit of strengthening, whether it's push-ups, ab work. And again, if it's going to be a night where they're going to be learning some Brazilian jiu-jitsu, the techniques that you do for warm-ups are going to be a little different in that you maybe do a little more rolling, a little bit more break falling, that sort of thing. Where if it's going to be a striking class, you're going to be doing more warm-ups gauged towards that, where there's punching and kicking and stretching and that sort of thing.
Got it. I'm not going to go on this one, but I'm going to go to Sensei Legacy next because otherwise it'll just be me saying the exact same thing as Sensei Legacy. So Sensei Legacy, for everybody's benefit, like what's a class like you with you like as far as typical karate class in Legacy Shard, or what happens?
Oh boy. I like Terry says, you have to warm people up. You have to build a little bit of strength. So I do that at the beginning. And then a lot of the times, most of my class consists of what I saw and the basics. If there were problems, then I'd cover stuff to correct some of that. And then just basically, and then at the end, we always do some fighting. I mean, that's where you gain your experience. It's not that everyone can't fight, but when someone faces somebody who wants to knock them out or wants to stab them or something, you have to calm your senses and not get excited. And that's part of my class at the end, is to teach them to be calm during a fight. You know, because even if you're not calm, you're just going to be swinging away, trying to knock the person out. And in 30 seconds, 30 seconds, you're going to be out of wind. And that's a fact.
Yeah.
You burn out all the blood sugar and your liver and in your muscle. And that's it. You're done. That's why you see guys in street fights just wailing away, and then all of a sudden they can't breathe.
They're done. Yeah.
That's right. So I think all martial arts dojos basically do the same thing.
Duration of one of your classes, Sensei Legacy?
An hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
When I trained with Benny Allen, we would do an hour and 15 minutes of warm-ups. Our classes were usually around 2.5, 3 hours. Like, he really worked you hard. Billy Hines used to like me, and he'd always call me over there, and that was always worst for me. Do you happen to know Bill Hines?
No.
No.
Thanks, Sensei. Sensei Srino, do you want to pick one of your arts that you do and go over what people could expect if they came into your class? What's it going to look like?
Yeah, the broad strokes are kind of the same. Even in Japan, training in a bunch of different martial arts, a lot of the same stuff happened. The bow in, some calisthenic warm up, some fundamentals. So, I mean, let's say it's judo. We bow in, we do some calisthenic warm ups, some light stretching. Stretching at the beginning of a class is not for making your, ability to extend longer. It's just to get you loosened up and get you more fluid. We always do ukemi as part of our warm ups, falling practice. Bunch of different versions of that. It's so important, as I say about both judo and jujitsu. As your ukemi goes, so goes your martial art. You have to be really good at falling so you can relax and pay attention in the class. That whole process, warm up, ukemi is probably 20 minutes. Then we usually do some kind of routine stepping. And then in judo, we do uchikomis, which is the setting up of throws, but not actually throwing. We have a routine set of stuff that we do over and over and over again, right? It's just building muscle memory for the core fundamentals. And then we move to the theme of the day. That could be a bunch of different techniques around one single paradigm or core idea, or it could be one technique, right? Training to try and just develop that particular technique, or to hit it from moving forward, to hit it from moving backward, from hit it and moving sideways. And then just like Hanshi Legacy said, 90% of our judo classes, maybe 95% of our judo classes finish with randori, with free practice. A, it's the most fun you can have with a pair of white pajamas on. And B, it sharpens your skills, right? You got it. That's where you get your exercise. That's where you build your courage. It's super fun. So yeah, it sounds like about the same thing. And then at the end, we compose ourselves, try to end with dignity, and bow out the class.
You know, it's one thing I'll share, because if you came and did karate, it would be the same, class would be the same as Sensei Legacies. And if you came here and did Iaido, the class would be the same as Sensei Suino's. But I have started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for about 3 years now. And I do find there's some unique differences in the way they run a class compared to how things are very extremely structured until they're not. So the warm up is always timed. There's literally a timer going while you're warming up. You warm up and then you partner up, and then there's drilling. And the drilling, it's interesting, is they set a timer on a technique. So if like, let's say it's some arm bar. So they'll say like 3 minutes. You just keep drilling that arm bar for 3 minutes, and then they say switch, and then your partner gets the chance to do the armbar. And one of the things that I find that's unique about that is some people work and some people don't. It's very interesting how some people can do 2 techniques in 3 minutes and other people can do like 35 techniques in 3 minutes. And then the end of the class is always fighting. And sometimes that's 3 minute rounds, sometimes it's 5 minute rounds, sometimes it's 6 minute rounds, but a bow in and a bow out. So slightly different. I don't use a timer in here. Sometimes if we're fighting, I'll use a timer just so people can change and get new partners and have different looks. But I don't, other than that, it's more free form. The structure might roll the same way, but I might choose to do basics for an hour and the other stuff for 15 minutes each, or vice versa. I have more questions, but I just, because Sean is not here, I always, Sensei Yanke, will like to take a pause and let the other instructors get in and ask a question if they have something that's rattling around. So if anybody has any questions, I'm going to pause.
Well, I do, but I want to make sure, Hunchy, if you have things you want to ask, it's a great
You
moment.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I may be the only guy that has this much interest in choking, but I want to keep that going for just a second, if you don't mind, Sensei Yanke. We went through a period in one of my early dojos where we had a group of guys we called the Dirty Dozen, and they were just scrappers. You know, our training in those days was 15 minutes of warm up and an hour and a half of fighting, and they didn't mind getting choked out, and there was a bit of a sense of honor about it. And one of the things we learned is that everybody seems to come out of choking in a different way, right? So if you put somebody to sleep with a chokehold, we had people in the dojo that would wake up smiling. We'd have people wake up still fighting. We'd wake up people really crabby. We had a few loose bladders. Nobody soiled themselves. I'm thankful for that. But I'm just wondering if you noticed that with in the days of strangling, not choking, if you in the days of strangling suspects. Did you notice anything? Like, did you strangle them long enough for them to go to sleep? And if so, when they came out of it, what kind of different reactions did you notice?
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, because there were differences. A lot of people would wake up and it's like, what happened? And it would take them a few minutes. Other people would wake up and they're just a little ornery. But keep in mind that a lot of the people I dealt with, they were under the different influences, whether alcohol, drug. Some people were just really, really angry. And the fact that they were being confined, maybe not so much that the fact that they were choked out or strangled, but the fact that now they're confined. So I don't know how to answer that. Just it could be the mood that they were in prior to being put to sleep. I don't know. Nobody was happy about it, but
As opposed to sometimes in the dojo, at least in the old days, and this may explain why I can't remember anything anymore, but uh, we were often happy about it because it was sort of a badge of honor the first time you got choked out. And it wasn't like we were literally seeking it. Almost never would in those days would someone go to someone and say, okay, choke me out, let me see how it is. But what we would do, right, while we're scrapping, right, while we're rolling around on the floor, you just be like, okay, this guy's got me in a good chokehold. I'm not tapping. Let's see where this goes, right? And because there was a group of really stubborn guys, almost every Friday night, at least one person would have to be revived. And
Well, that brings me back to when I was taking judo with Joe Letterman. I mean, he put me in a strangulation technique or a choke, and there's no way I was going to let him do that. And I would fight like crazy, even though he's got me. I don't know how many times I was out and wake up and just looking, and people are looking over me. Are you all right? Oh, yeah.
right.
Yeah, I was just stubborn. Eventually I learned, it's better to tap.
Mhm.
It just took me a while. Like I said, it was just there were a lot of rough kids, and you just it took me a while to learn some discipline, so to speak. And I eventually I did learn it, but
In
This
karate, you can't tap. You
right.
don't.
I was gonna go around with this, Randy. So Randy, I'll go to you. Talk about the differences between getting choked out in judo and getting punched out in karate. And have you been knocked out cold? And if so, what was that like? And then we'll go to Hachi Legacy.
I've just been stunned a couple times. I know since he'll have a better answer for you than me. Um, you lose time. You don't know if it's been like 15 minutes or 10 seconds, right? And you don't feel it coming on. Like in jujitsu, when I go there, you can feel it coming on. You can literally, like, you can see, like, it's closing, 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 closing. Like, when I'm there, that's not the same in striking. It's just 1 second you're there, and then the next second, like, you lose time. But you should probably go to Sensei Legacy. He'll have a better answer.
Yeah, Hachi. If you care to share, have you been knocked out? And what was it like?
I've never been knocked out, but I've been knocked down uh,
Mm.
2 times in a tournament at Canadian National Exhibition by John Lafitte, and both was in a championship fight. He hit me, and the next thing I saw were my feet way out there in front of me, and I hit the ground and then stood back up. He did that to me 2 times. But my question was going to be like, what's the difference? And you already asked it. What's the difference between putting someone to sleep with a punch or a choke, or punching them? Where punching should, a good punch will take you a quarter of a second. With the knowledge of that, the longer you're in a struggle or in a fight, the more of a chance there is for you to get hurt. So, what would prevent you from knocking somebody out as opposed to choking him out?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay. When I was in the police force, and I'm sure it is more so now, you're responsible for what you do to somebody. And I was told, back to the court case, that I had explained the difference between a choke and a strangulation technique. It was a couple of weeks later, the Crown Attorney came to me and said, okay, you have martial arts experience. More is expected of you when dealing with people. He said, you have the knowledge and the opportunity to do a technique to somebody, restrain them without hurting them. If you don't have any training, yeah, you're going to come out swinging. And so, yeah, for me, I always kept that in my mind. And yeah, I could punch somebody. I know a lot of police officers who did punch people, and they really hurt their hand because they would punch them in the top of the head or the side of the head. Yeah, the guy would go down, probably knock him out, but the police officer would end up being off because he's broken some bones in his hands, because it's, very seldom do things work out perfectly. A really nice hook punch or cross, whatever. Somebody moves a little bit, you hit them wrong. Yeah, you've done what you wanted to do. You wanted to knock them out, and you did that. But then there's the damage that's done, or the injuries that are caused to you and to the other person. And really, when I arrested people, I didn't want to hurt them. I didn't want them fighting anymore.
You're in the wrong business there. I think. So, why is it then that, do they still carry a nightstick?
A lot of, okay, so I've been retired for a little bit, but they really wanted you to use the nightstick to go to people's legs. And they'd rather have you cripple them, I guess, than smash their face in. I don't know. When I was on the force, we carried a tonfa for a little while until somebody got a little crazy with it and said, okay, we're taking those away and we're giving you a straight stick. And a lot of guys they use it to test the tires on their on the police cruiser to see if they're all right. I don't know. But yeah, it's the baton. I don't think has been used well enough over the years, because I think you get some training with it initially, but the police training isn't kept up, and you're not in a dojo or in the police station in the gym often enough to practice with it. And a lot of times it's just out of frustration, somebody would be swinging their baton and smacking somebody, and things just don't always work out the way you want them to.
Yeah, because I would think if you're swinging a baton and punching somebody, you would cause more
Oh, absolutely.
immediate damage than punching somebody because of the displacement and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you could, if you really train hard, you can almost limit the damage when you're punching. For instance, if you just punch in an inch, or if you punch in 2 inches, whether to the body or to the head, I can see where you could give somebody a concussion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Right.
I just don't think that the police officers today, they get enough training. I mean, they got all this equipment on it. They look like the back end of a hydro truck. I don't know how they move. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents about the police department. As much as I support them, I just think they require a lot more training than they're getting.
So I wouldn't mind, unless it's a sooner you want to keep, you love strangling and choking. We can stay on the strangling and choking topic forever, but I have another question, but I don't want to go to that because it's going to take us in a different direction.
That's fine. Yeah, let's go on there. I know a little bit we got to get to our questions, but let's run with yours.
So Sensei Yanke, another thing, like I don't mean this to be educational just for me, but it has been, and other people are going to benefit from that education. You competed quite a bit. You went to some other countries and you competed. I wouldn't mind hearing about two things. One, your experiences, like what do you take away from the competition and going there? How did you get there? But then the other thing I'm just curious about is, in all honesty, I'm not trying to be cheeky. I don't know. I don't understand what a Japanese jiu-jitsu competition is. Like, I don't understand what it is at all, to be honest with you. I've never seen one. I just don't know. And I say that kind of embarrassed after being in martial arts for 36 years that I don't know what a Japanese jiu-jitsu tournament looks like.
Okay, so it's hard to answer that, and let me explain why. When I first started in competition, obviously the strikes were light contact, and very, or moderate contact to the body, light to the head, no kicking to the legs. And so our system, it evolved. So you could throw somebody and you could strike them on the ground, but you can only strike them once. And then they increased that. And so now they've changed it a little bit, not a little bit, they've quite a bit. So if you think of an MMA fight, with less contact and like no elbows and knees, that sort of thing, it's very close to a jiu-jitsu competition. Our association, it took a long time, but we became members of the Jiu-Jitsu International Federation. We had to leave the World Council, and we became part of the Jiu-Jitsu International Federation, which is, it has links to the IOC. And we're hoping that eventually Jiu-Jitsu will become part of the Olympics. It's, so their rules, they have different types of competition. They have what they call a duo kata that is run, and they will give you a number and a letter, and they correspond with a punch or a knife attack, and and you have to know what that number represents and do a defensive technique from whatever that is. Whether, like I said, it could be a knife attack, a punch, a kick, whatever. The sparring aspect of it is, and Sensei Doug, I know he's on, he may be able to correct me on this. You have, I think it's 2 minutes stand-up fighting where you have to throw X number of techniques and score so many points. Then you have to take them to the ground, and you need to manipulate them on the ground. And you can't take somebody to the ground if you haven't scored the points while standing. And it's scored that way. I used to know, I used to referee, but not since we've become part of Jiu-Jitsu International Federation. But it would be, like I said, very similar to MMA without the level of contact. The idea is to score points, not to knock somebody out. And I don't know, and Doug might be able to correct me on this. The rules, I don't think you're allowed to punch somebody to the head on the ground. And I know when I refereed, it was against the rules because somebody would lift their head up. If you hit them, head would hit the mat, come back up again, and the potential for a head injury was pretty high. So, yeah, it'd be actually interesting for myself to watch a couple different matches to see how they do, the type of or what the rules are, because I'm certainly not up on them.
It sounds very similar to a karate tournament, is what you're describing to me. But so when the combat starts, it's not prearranged then.
No,
that's the part I don't understand. Like, it's not prearranged. They just go out but the number thing where it's like, this is an attack, that's prearranged. Am I getting that right?
The duo kata, yes. Well, it's the numbers correspond to a technique that you're going to have to defend from.
I see. And then how is that, like, that's like a karate kata, like there's a panel of judges and they say this person did it better than this person? Is that?
Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Yes.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate your input on that, because again, I wasn't trying to be cheeky, but I
no, that's
really,
all right.
Yeah. I have a list of questions here, but I'm looking at some because I don't want to repeat. And I just gotta. Oh, Sensei Suino, I sent them to you in a private chat.
Okay, thank you.
We're gonna have to we're gonna do the 10 questions for you, Sensei, in 5 minutes, and you'll have 10 minutes to answer those. But before we get to that, I do have another question for you. I'm just curious to know if you in jiu-jitsu, do you have a favorite aspect of that training modality? So is there something that you like about it? I don't want to say, are you a specialist in something? Because we know that you're really good at taking somebody's back and making them crap themselves. But
You know, I don't know
when you're
if
in
that's something I should be known for.
That guy scares the shit out of me.
Well, put it this way. I don't know if you're done with the question.
No, it's just, do you have a favorite aspect of the training, or has it evolved even? Like, did you have a certain thing that you liked and now you like a different thing more?
Okay, so I'm 73, and as much as I like to kick, punch, especially my kicks, they're not where they should be when I was younger. So and I don't like getting thrown. Don't throw me. So even though I really enjoyed that aspect of it when I was a little younger, now I do more with the pressure points. I know when I was on the police force, this is something that worked really, really well for me, that required very little energy, but very effective, and they hurt like hell. So at Capital Conquest, that's one of the things that I teach is pressure point techniques from various attacks.
Sensei Yanke, we ask all of our guests the same 10 questions. There's a little bit of a caveat. We changed maybe about 10 episodes ago. So we want you to expand as much as you want to, but we also like when you're just impulsive with your answers. And we're going to time you, and you're going to get 10 minutes to answer these 10 questions. And we're going to go back and forth. So I'll start, and then Trino's going to go. We're going to go back and forth. And again, you can expand, but I'm going to start a timer. And when 10 minutes hits, we're going to stop. So if we only get to one question, we're going to do one question. And no pressure. But most of the guests can get through these questions in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Nothing to
Okay.
it.
Nothing to it. So I'm going to hit start on this timer and ask you your question. The first question is, what is the most effective move in your martial arts arsenal? We know it's taking the back and making them crap themselves, but
Well, okay, so let's go to strangulation. Because I still, whether even in judo, I always went for the strangulation technique, whether it's the gi, but usually it was a gi with judo. But yeah, I would have to say that's the most effective technique that I've used over and over and over again.
Well, I'm a big fan. Question number 2, who is the most influential martial artist in your life?
That would be Joe Letterman. Yeah, he did a lot for me. I mean, martial arts wise, but I think he was a big influence on making me who I am. You know, he taught me to respect, be humble. Yeah, just so many different aspects of my life that he deserves the credit for. How's that?
Perfect.
so the next question is, who do you think is the most influential martial artist of all time and why?
With me or with
The whole gamut of all time. Who do you think is the most influential martial artist of all time and why?
I think it would be a little bit of a toss-up, excuse me, between Bruce Lee um, and Chuck Norris. And yeah, I think forget getting past the theatrics that they were involved with movies. They were, and not that I saw actual footage of fights with Bruce Lee like I did with Chuck Norris, but from what I understand, he was quite an awesome fighter and excuse me, quite a philosopher and good at what he did. And I think he brought, Kung Fu really into the market and Jeet Kune Do.
Nice. What excites you most about the next 5 years of your martial arts training?
Sorry, what?
What excites you most about the next 5 years of your martial arts training?
I hope I can train. It's yeah, ask my wife and she'll tell you I hate slowing down. And I think of things that I want to do that I used to do, but unfortunately I can't, or I can't do it as well. So if I can continue to train for another 5 years or 10 years, I enjoy being on the mats. I enjoy meeting my dojo friends, my martial arts friends. Yeah, I hope that I hope I can continue to train. I've met some awesome people and I want to keep associating with them.
I think it's a brilliant answer. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get there?
God,
Yeah.
what are you doing here? Have you seen Lucifer? Boy, that's a good question. I think he would want to know if I've done what I can to help people, to be a positive influence. And what I tell my instructors is like, be a good person and lead by example. And I hope that God would see that and not send me back.
Do you have a favorite film or television martial artist, even if they're a real martial artist or not?
I think someone I enjoy watching is probably Jackie Chan. I mean, he does bring some comedy to his techniques. I like what he does, and I mean, I've seen different movies, and even Jet Li is I find a lot of his techniques are very good, and so I like to see good techniques done well, even though it's a movie, and they may do okay, take 10, take 11, and I like to see things that I can relate to that we would even do in our dojo or have done in our dojo.
I like that too. So every once in a while, I'll watch I watch a martial arts movie, 13 Assassins, and I see a person do a cut like Maya, and I'm like, I know that cut. Anyway, I'm eating up your time, Sensei. Um,
Oh,
do you have, seventh question is, do you have a martial artist living or dead of all time that you wish you could train with?
I would say I would go back to Chuck Norris because he's somebody I would like to train with and then go for a beer with after. Yeah, I find him, and I don't know what it is. I just find him very humble, quiet, sort of walks softly and carries a big stick. I don't know if that applies, but yeah, he seems like generally a good guy and someone I would really enjoy training with.
Your question 8 is, if everyone in the world could have the same benefit you have from a lifetime in martial arts, whether they train or not, what benefit would that be?
I don't know. I would say, and I don't know if I'm answering this correctly. Would benefit from me? Say that again.
Well, if you could take one benefit away from your training in the martial arts, right? You spent a lifetime in the martial arts, to quantify it and say, the very best benefit I've taken away from all this is X, right? And I could give that to the world. What would that be?
I would say being respectful. And we bow in our dojo, and I don't care if it's somebody's, because I was asked this one time. We had somebody who came into the dojo. They had for some reason they had a karate gi. I don't know, but we let them in. And I'm just kidding. And steps on the mat and they bow, I bow. And I had one of my students say, "They just got here. Why are you bowing?" It's like, person's here. They want to learn. I respect them for being here. They don't have to do a whole bunch of things, and then I respect them. The fact that they're here, they wanting to learn, and willing to let me teach them, I respect them for that. So for me, I think respect is a huge part.
Got it.
Doing good here, Sensei. You got 1 minute. And we have
Okay.
2.
You
What
just cut out.
What is your
Okay.
greatest regret?
Sorry.
What is your greatest achievement? Greatest achievement, greatest regret.
Okay, yeah, Randy's really breaking up there. Did you get that question, Sensei?
I did.
Yep, yep.
I think the greatest achievement is my ability to be on the mats with so many people, teach them, and have them learn what I can teach them. I know that we've had a lot of people go through the dojo, and I'm just hoping I've had a positive, given them a positive experience, a positive influence on not only in the dojo, but in their daily life. I hope that I've made a difference. The greatest regret? I think my greatest regret is not training with other clubs, other arts sooner than I have. When I started going to Capital Conquest and seeing all the different arts that are being taught, I was amazed and enlightened, because even now I go to Capital Conquest, and before I teach or after I teach, I look at what's being taught, and if there's not enough, if there's not too many people on the mat, I won't go in. But if there isn't, I like to participate, because there's things that I don't care if I'm ninth degree or not, I still learn. And I think actually Sensei Doug Canispo talked about this. How you build blocks on your career, on your martial arts career. And if my instructor was able to teach me knowledge for 20 blocks, my blocks now are 10 times that. My students, I want them to be able to build on what I've taught them, so that their building blocks are even higher. That is something that I've been able to do because of cross training. meeting other martial artists, and not saying, well, I do jujitsu. I don't do karate. I don't do taekwondo. I don't do that. You know, I think when you shut the door on learning, you're just hurting yourself. And so for me, I wish I would have been learning those, or partaking in these different arts much sooner.
I love that answer. I shut the timer off.
Okay.
I shut the
Good.
timer off.
Now I was starting to sweat here.
Mostly you answered the question, but I like where you're taking the regret. I think that's a good one. And it leads into a question that we've sometimes used as the 11th question, which might be, I have two kind of questions, but we only have 10 minutes left in this show. Because you're talking about capital conquest and a lot of other arts that you've seen, we sometimes ask people, if the art that you're proficient in right now didn't exist, what is another martial art that you really think you would have liked to have poured yourself into?
I probably would have stayed with judo, but other than that, I would probably have gone with karate. Excuse me, karate.
Is there anything in particular about that like you're curious about or interested in most?
I think because there's so many different aspects of jujitsu, we don't or haven't spent as much time striking, punching, and kicking. And you know, not that I haven't done all right with my striking. I just think that it would be something that I would like to spend more time on.
Amazing. I have one question that I'd like to go around the horn on. It's a more of an insight type of a question, Sensei Yanke. And the question that I have for you, you have a lot of experience. You're a high-ranking person. You've seen lots of beginners come in and you've seen lots of mistakes happen. And my question to you is, what would you tell everybody out there who's watching this show right now that's never done martial arts? What's advice that you would give them as a beginner entering a martial arts school? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to be open and don't close off to your learning ability. Because you may see something and you don't like it, you don't think it's going to work, but it could be because you don't understand other aspects of what you're being taught. And a lot of the times, I think for beginners, if you take too much time explaining why you're doing something, they miss out on the ability just to do it. And why you're doing it is nice to know, but doing things repetitiously, sometimes the question is answered on its own. So yeah, go into dojo, be willing to learn, and just soak up as much as you can.
Love it. Sensei Suino, what advice would you give somebody who's never done martial arts? They're not coming to JMAC, they're going to another place. What would you tell them?
I mean, there's so many things, but one thing that comes to mind right now is when you go into your first dojo and you're watching a class, watch the students as much as you watch the instructor. See how they're responding. Do they seem interested? Are they bored? Are their minds just idling a lot of the time? Are they sitting more than they're training? Look at how engaged they are. If they're having an engaging, immersive experience, that tells you something about how the instructor runs his dojo. And that's going to tell you what kind of experience you're going to have. So that's, I think, one of the important things to look at.
Love it. Since Legacy, what would you tell somebody? They're not coming to Legacy Shorin-ryu. What would you tell them as a beginner going into the dojo?
I would um, what Sensei Dauphin, or excuse me, just said. Um, Sensei Suino just said, "Don't. You're never going to be the instructor there or that person." So I would agree with him. Look at the students. That's what you. That's their product of that school. So I would be looking at that. The other thing is, before you step in and decide things for yourself, I would do some research on the school, see how long it's been there. The longevity is important because that means that a lot of other people will be like Northern Karate schools, for instance. They've been there a long time, they're growing all the time. Look for a classical karate dojo. And then once you've made your choice, then you dedicate yourself to the sensei. You do what he says. He's been there a while, looking at your research and everything. Turns out good students. So uh, that's what I would
Thank you,
take the
Sensei.
time. Take the time. Don't just send your kids to the neighborhood dojo because it's close. That's not a good choice. If a good dojo is close, well, then you go there, of course.
How about you, Randy?
I would go in a little bit the same direction as Sensei Yanke. So I think what I would tell people is look at the people in the dojo and be inspired by them for sure. Like seeing a nice kick or good throws or people who are really tough. But don't tell yourself you can't do that. Tell yourself that if you see people doing things in the dojo, you can do those things too. You can be inspired by them, but don't limit yourself and tell yourself, I could never do that. That's just a barrier you're putting in your mind because you truly can do it. Everybody can do it. You just have to get on the floor and do it. And that's what I would tell beginners. You might feel nervous, you might feel afraid, you might feel limited. Please try and let that all go and just be like the other people. Because I guarantee when you come into dojo, there's some people who are, when they started, they were better than you are the day you started, but there's a lot of people who, when they started, they were a lot worse than you too. Right. So
Sure.
that's what I would say. So Sensei Yanke, listen, time is real. We are now 3 minutes before ending the show, and we like to end it on time because Sensei Suino has some nighttime pills and stuff he needs to take before he goes to sleep. Well, but we always go around the horn and talk about our thoughts on you tonight. Before we do that, I want to say thanks to the people who help us run this show. So I want to say thank you to Robert Slumsky, Andrei Sedishev, who's running it tonight, Justin Shea, Mike Russell, Josh Kitchens, Jerry Holland III, Jesse Vito, Christiana Landolt, and Emily Ruth Driscoll. The show doesn't happen without these people doing this stuff. And so I'm going to first turn it over to Sensei Suino. What do you want to say about our time tonight with Sensei Yanke?
Sensei, thank you so much for coming on the show. And this was fun. We get to see each other across the floor on the mat sometimes, but having a conversation is so valuable. It's a great way to get to know you. I think anybody who started judo in 1968 has got to be a great human being. And it's even better because you can get behind people, choke them, and make them embarrass themselves. You're my kind of guy. Thanks for coming on the show. Looking forward to seeing you at the next Capital Conquest.
Absolutely. Thank you. You too.
So Lacey, what do you want to say about our time with Sensei Yanke tonight?
It's good having you with us. We had a good time. I will never let you stand behind me. And I hope to see you at an event soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
Sensei Yanke, for me, I write down a bunch of notes. I think it's really awesome, all the respect that you have for Sensei Joe Letterman, and just it's really clear when you speak about him how much respect you actually have for him, and equally so Al McLean as well. Like it's really clear you value the instructors that you've had and you've learned a lot from them. I think it's really cool. I think it's natural that policing took you to jiu-jitsu. When I asked that question and you said that answer, it just made sense to me. because so many of the jiu-jitsu people talk about law enforcement, military enforcement. I also like when you talked about one thing that you said that was really simple that for law enforcement was proper stance, right? Like just we all often are thinking about like the great technique or like the jump spinning kick or getting behind them and making them crap themselves, that. But a simple thing about martial arts, and all of them have in common, I think that will help you in conflict, is having a proper stance, a good stable stance, and being able to position yourself. Um, you said you want to stop somebody's desire to attack you. I really like that. That to me, like I always take something away and think about it a lot. And that's one of the things that um, it's common sense, I think, for a martial artist, but we don't express it sometimes in such a just a clear way. And that's, you didn't say you want to choke them unconscious. You didn't say you want to like crush their windpipe. You didn't say you want to knock them out and break their jaw. You said you want to stop their desire to attack you. That I think is a good goal in martial arts. I was going to make a joke about I want to come to your mat at Capital Conquest. I'll be the guy with the adult-sized diapers on when I come there.
You're welcome on my mat, and no, I won't do that. I'm very conscious of who my audience is when I teach that.
Okay. Well, you said Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. A lot of people have said that in their 10 questions. I do like what you said about Chuck Norris. I agree with you. He does just seem like a friendly guy. He leans into all the stuff about him in a good-natured way, about all the jokes and stuff like that. But I do also think he's a legit, real good, tough karate guy that deserves the respect that he's earned through all the jokes.
Yeah, I agree.
Next 5 years, I hope you can train too, Sensei Yanke, because I want to train with you as much as possible in the next 5 years. Um, Jackie Chan, man, what a great martial artist, right? Like, so
Yeah.
not only a great martial artist, but super entertaining. I can't think of a time I watched a movie of his that I was like, oh, this is shit, and I wanted to turn it off. Because
Yeah, exactly.
I liked the techniques and I was entertained by him. The greatest benefit, the world could listen to you right now. Respect would be a very good thing if people, especially political leaders and people of influence, could be more respectful to each other. I think they could learn some lessons, and the world could. Greatest achievement, the dichotomy of people that you've taught and you've been able to teach. I like your regret too, not being training in other arts sooner. Yeah, I really enjoyed this, Sensei Yanke. I really enjoyed the time with you tonight. Thank you so much. This definitely was not one where you were not in the ballpark. You're as good or better than any of the guests we've ever had on here. And in time, other people are going to stumble across this and they're going to feel the same way as us. But before we say goodnight, the last word goes to you, Sensei Yanke. What do you want to say about the time with us tonight? Or what do you want to leave us with?
I have enjoyed tonight. And I was a little hesitant about coming on, but having a conversation with three very good martial artists, people I respect, I've enjoyed. And unfortunately, this is I shouldn't say unfortunately. It's nice to be able to talk, but at the same time, I really can't wait to see you guys in person, give you a hug, a martial arts hug. We do that, and train with it if possible. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sensei Yanke, and thank everybody who logged in tonight. Have a great night, everyone.